Cool. So Cenk went back on the David Pakman show to confront him once again, this time arguing that Biden cannot win the presidency. And of course, Pakman basically just tells his hyper liberal audience what they want to hear, which is that Biden is fine. Everything's going to be cool. Don't worry. It's going to go great. And Cenk's here to push back on that a little bit. So I have some, mixed feelings about this conversation, but it should be a pretty entertaining debate to react to.
And what can we do? Hasn't changed since we last spoke. Fixing what you believe is an impending problem with Joe Biden as the Democratic nominee, and trying to improve circumstances and defeating Trump in November. Is that the primary goal here?
Yeah. So the three goals have always been the same as day one. But it gets adapted to the circumstances of the race as we go along. So I always said goal number one was not the naturalized citizen issue. It was to knock Joe Biden out so that we would have a great candidate against Trump. I think that it's malpractice to say we should take a candidate that's polling 10 points lower than the average Democrat and run him against the existential threat against democracy. I can't believe the Democrats are contemplating it. I think that they're finally going to change their mind. I think Biden is actually going to drop out at some point relatively soon. But look, I've been right about that from day one. Now almost everyone agrees, from Ezra Klein to Nate Silver. Yeah, it turns out Cenk was right. He's not going to win. It's not even going to be close. So I'm still on that warpath. And I need Democrats to understand, please do not let mainstream media brainwash you. It doesn't hurt your team to have the best candidate. It helps your team to have the best candidate. It's Alice in Wonderland. Media switches things so that reality is on its head. No, he's obviously super weak, and his favorability is in the 30s. Literally no one running for federal office has ever recovered from ratings this low to win an election in an election year. Ever. Okay, so that's point one, and I'm still on that. Point two is the naturalized citizen thing. It's an injustice. When I see an injustice, I can't help but try to address it. And as we just talked about, I'm very likely right about that as well.
Can we pause it really quick?
And then
Cenk is fucking spitting in this clip, dude. 100%. He's completely right. He's like, dude, you can live in a different reality. I'll live in this one. Now, I would say Cenk is also still living in his own reality, so maybe I should caveat that. He's not exactly the best vehicle to save us, as Penguin in a Suit's pointing out in chat, but the fact that people, like, he's 100% right when he said that his favorability is in the 30s. Nobody's come back from that. There has to be a serious challenge to him. The only reason that it's even close, guys, and there are still general election polling that has, pretty neck and neck results between Trump and Biden. I think that if it stays at the level that it is now and Trump doesn't take any further hits, I'm hoping he will, but if he doesn't take any further hits from his federal prosecution and also the what's happening in New York and Georgia, if that doesn't come home and cook his goose as it is, he'll win in the Electoral College by a landslide, because it's already skewed to massively benefit the Republicans. Republicans can be 2 or 3% behind in, even accurate national polling, and then still come away with a massive victory when it comes to the Electoral College, because of states like Wyoming, which have no fucking people, North Dakota, South Dakota, no fucking people in those states, but they're always going to go Republican, right? It's like a safety net for them. Anyways, so that's all 100% clear. The only thing that's a bummer is that Cenk can't just be like, well, I'm not actually running for president. Like, I just think somebody should do it. Like, he should be talking about it in the sense that, like, he's running like Mike Gravel was running, right? In that case, I'm running as the ceasefire candidate. Like, support me if you support a ceasefire. Show Joe Biden. He should be the guy that they're writing in on behalf of the uncommitted thing. If you're uncommitted, like, you know what I mean? He should be joining forces with the Michael Moores and the Rashida Tlaibs, and he should be on the ground in Michigan, and he should be like, why not vote for me, Cenk Uygur, who is 100% committed to a ceasefire? Why not show them with real tangible votes that there is somebody else? And also, if you're worried about it in the end, I'm not a natural born citizen. Like, they're not going to let me be the nominee no matter what. You know what I mean? But I'll raise attention to this, and we'll also raise attention to the injustice that is, the fact that you have to be born on a United States citizen in order to be president, which I think everybody listening, including Gavin, I know for a fact, would just say that's bullshit.
The third thing is to push forward progressive priorities. So in the beginning, did I have around a 1.5% chance of actually winning the whole thing if I won my court case, et cetera, if I'd gotten a series of miracles? Yeah. Do I now even have a 1.5% chance? Probably not. Okay. But something happened, David, that makes this race even more compelling now, not less compelling, even though I went from very, very low chance to probably no chance of winning at this point.
Yeah.
So
Honesty.
what happened was, since Biden might drop out after the primaries, then every delegate becomes worth its weight in gold. So progressives would actually be crazy not to collect their delegates in one candidate. So if you get to 15% in any state, you get delegates. And if Biden drops out, he's not going to hand it to Kamala Harris. There's going to be a delegate fight, old school conventions. This is exactly what happened all the way to 1968. There's no reason why we can't do this. There's 100 reasons why we should do this.
Okay, that's partially true, right? What he's saying right here is partially true about how the delegates will start to matter. Oh, here, look, Gavin's back. The delegates will start to matter, and that's what I pointed out about Cenk. I wanted to cut him off before. But the reality is that Cenk's not built the infrastructure to get to 15% in any of these fucking states. That's the problem here. He's barely gotten to get to above 3% in polling in places like Texas. Guys, there's so many college kids in Texas. There's so many people to participate in the Democratic primary in Texas. Like, if you're not going to get to the 15% in Texas or in California or somewhere like that, like, you are not going to get to 15% anywhere. So he's making a good point, right? Which is the problem with the entire Cenk presidential run, right? He's making a lot of good, valid points. It's just that like, the rubber's never meeting the road for Cenk. He's always still with TYT. He never fully committed himself to this run. It was always an afterthought. It was like, oh, well, the New Hampshire primary is happening today, but I'm at Los Angeles recording the Young Turks, where I've also done all of my media fucking presentations, even though I own the fucking outlet. Like, these bad, horrible decisions. Like, we talked about Dr. West having, a lot of moral clarity. Cenk does not have even a fraction of the moral fucking high ground that a guy like Dr. West has. He's, been a union buster. He's been a pro-capitalist. He's, done X, Y, and Z. You could dig up dirt on the guy. He's done good things too. That's why we call balls and strikes when it comes to Cenk, even though he hates us. I think that had he had better political acumen, right? Had he actually decided he wanted to learn from his horrendous race against Christy Smith in Orange County for Congress, had he decided to, actually build an infrastructure, take this seriously, leave TYT, so, divorce himself from that and commit himself absolutely to being the ceasefire candidate, I would have taken him a lot more seriously than this half-ass bullshit where, even though a lot of what he's saying is true, that's not what makes a president, right? That's not what makes you a candidate. Like, the execution, right? It's kind of like how, and I hate to use the Silicon Valley analogy, but this is actually pretty good. People who are really secretive about their startup ideas, like, nobody sweats them because those people aren't serious. Having a great idea doesn't fucking mean anything. You're not going to sell your idea, right? That just means you don't want to put the sweat equity in because you don't believe in it enough, right? That's what everybody else will perceive. So it's really easy to talk a big game about what I do with that when I'm president, right? It's way harder to have the rubber meet the road. And I think that's what Cenk is clearly missing here.
Yep, 100%.
Handed to Kamala Harris. There's going to be a delegate fight, old school conventions. This is exactly what happened all the way to 1968. There's no reason why we can't do this. There's 100 reasons why we should do this. At that point, Gavin Newsom, Pritzker, Whitmer, et cetera, are competing. The delegates, Biden delegates, are not going to give it to me. There's a 0% chance of that, right? But if progressives had 20 delegates, 2 delegates, 200 delegates, whatever the number is, then we can negotiate for something that we care about, something that the American people want. So we should amass our votes and our delegates under a candidate like me, and I am the only progressive left in the race now. So that's been my argument. And if I was out of the race, I swear to God, and somebody else was in, I'd say, collect all your votes and delegates under that person. It's so obvious. Please do that. Don't give away your power.
All right. So let's go through a couple of these different things. Now, I want to make it really clear. I just have an opinion, and it's sort of different than Cenk's. It doesn't mean I'm right or Cenk's right. We have to wait and see, right? In other words, we are making assessments based on the information we have. Am I concerned about Biden's age and effervescence? Yes, I am. Do I think it makes sense to have an answer? I don't know that I need to know it personally, but should there be an answer that the DNC has of what happens if an 81-year-old doesn't make it for whatever reason? There should absolutely be an answer to that. There needs to be some kind of plan. I assume, and I know you're saying there would be a fight. I assume the DNC would say the plan is either Kamala or it's Pete Buttigieg or it's Gavin Newsom. I assume they would have some name. I don't know what that name is. But here's where I really kind of have a different 40,000 foot view. When you look at polling in 2012 between Romney and Obama, at this point, Romney on average was up 2. Okay, so it's not like a blowout that Romney, oh my God, Romney was up 2. And as we know, Romney ultimately lost. If I zoom out, no matter what's going on, Incumbents get reelected 75% of the time. If I look at the economic data, it's pretty good in a lot of ways. Unemployment sustained under 4%, first
Can we
time for
pause
this long
this?
in like 50 years. GDP numbers look pretty good.
Can we just talk? I hate to be ad hominem right as soon as I get back. I was listening while I was going to the bathroom. This guy's such a fucking weenie. Oh my God, dude. An L7 weenie. Oscar Mayer, Dodger size, foot long, fucking weenie, dude. I don't know how else to articulate my feelings towards you guys. But now let's get on to politics, where he's just lying to you. He's just lying to you. Do you know what David Pakman would be telling you if unemployment was exactly the same under Donald Trump right now? Oh, those aren't very accurate reflections of employment because people are working multiple jobs or they're not working at all. And in order to make unemployment numbers look better when times are rough on America, which is fucking always, yeah, we've just decided to stop counting people who we don't think are actively looking for work, or people who have decided to drop out of the economy, or people who are relying on Social Security, which doesn't make them enough money. Yeah. Oh, what about that, David? What's the minimum wage for one of those fucking jobs? You mean to tell me I could work 40 hours a week with 3 different jobs, 120 hours a week, and still go hungry, David? Sounds like a roaring economy to me. You know, one of the things that reminded me how out of touch people who aren't in like lefty podcast spheres are. But when you break out into like normal podcasting, right? Like I consume mainstream media too, particularly about sports, right? I was listening to the Colin Cowherd podcast the other day, and this guy was like, you know, I know the economy is doing just fine. Every time I go to the airport, it's fucking busy. And I'm not one of those guys that has to like private or has to fly private. I hate flying private when it's cold outside. Why would I want to have to go out onto the tarmac when I could just zip in and get my seat in first class? It's ridiculous. And I'm like, oh yeah, so to that guy, the economy's fine because when he doesn't want to fucking bother to fly private because it's too cold outside, he's gonna squeeze into a first class ticket and take it to, you know, from LAX to Miami. It was like, why wouldn't I? You know, I'm just a regular working class Joe myself. It's like people are so out of touch. David Pakman is giving that same energy, except he's supposed to talk about lefty politics for a living, not football.
Yeah. It's interesting, and he makes some interesting points, some of which I think aren't totally illegitimate. Like, I still personally think it's probably about a 50-50 whether or not Biden is able to secure re-election. I don't think that it's like 100% done and over, like some people, including Cenk, are saying. Even if Biden is the nominee, I think Trump really is so bad and so repellent to much of the American electorate and just like normie people that show up to vote that there's still a chance Biden wins. But, you know, Pakman is referencing the Obama campaign in 2012 against Mitt Romney and talking about how he came back from a pretty low approval rating. Obama was like hovering around 40% in his first term in the lead up to his reelection. And it did look for a little bit like Mitt Romney might be able to take him out. I think the difference, though, between the situation Obama was in at the time and the situation that Biden is in right now is that Obama was actually able to mount a seriously robust campaign against Romney. He was more than capable of defending his record and being a charismatic orator that he was. He was able to continue.
He wore blue jeans, Gavin.
Yeah, and he was able to kind of keep inspiring people and tricking them, frankly, in the same way that he did during his first election of 2008. He also did a really good job painting Mitt Romney as a totally out of touch, rich, you know, criminal, essentially, which was really, resonant with the American people at the time coming out of the recession and all that stuff. Biden has none of those abilities currently to defend his record, nor to paint his opponent really in any specific or particular way, just because he doesn't have the ability to communicate at all. He's totally incoherent, and he's not really able to, you know, put on a show in the same way that Obama was able to. You guys probably remember that after the first debate, where Obama was admittedly a little bit rusty, he came through and totally destroyed Mitt Romney and basically all of the subsequent debates after the first one in 2012. Again, Biden's just not going to be able to do that. He won't even take the freaking Super Bowl interview. He's not going to be able to come out here and destroy Donald Trump on the debate stage. He can't even get through a press conference. So, yeah, I think that's the big difference. And if we were talking about the Joe Biden from 10 years ago, then I think David Pakman would be right on the money. I would say, yeah, he doesn't really have much to worry about. He's probably going to coast into re-election. But Biden's age is now a huge factor. And I do think it's probably going to be the reason why he loses, if he loses, even more so than the Palestine situation, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. And I agree with this chat message here. If Biden were younger, he'd beat Trump. Yeah, if we were dealing with, 2008 Joe Biden, even though I would hate his policies exactly the same, he would at least be able to savage Donald Trump and take him down. He was far more articulate. We played Joe Biden's one career W already in this podcast as an example of how fire he could be. And that was when he was calling for an end to the South African apartheid. Right. So clearly he understands what an apartheid looks like and what a fucking, anyway, we don't have to get into it. We already played that clip. He was actually able to put a sentence together. He seemed sharp. He was with it, as they say. But it's, I can't remember who. Somebody tweeted about how, it's over for Joe Biden because people describe him the same way that they describe your dogs that's about to die. It's like he's still pretty sharp. No, most of the time he's like he gives it a great effort. He still has a little trot in him. It's just like, yeah, that's how you want to describe the president, the leader of the free world, essentially.
Good. Inflation's down to about 3, which is the goal. Wage growth that has actually outpaced inflation for a period. I don't have to give you the whole list, but like economy looks okay. I look at Biden's accomplishments. I see 3 major pieces of legislation: inflation reduction, the CHIPS and Science Act, we could do the list. More student loan debt forgiveness than anybody else. Wants cannabis descheduled, which I think I've been waiting 15 years for that. Now, will it happen? Does he genuinely want it? Is he doing it because he knows it won't go through? We can, right? Okay. But so
why do you have to say that while you're defending your guy? That's how fucking miserable fucking dunce he is. He promises shit all the time and he doesn't deliver it. So you already built into your thing. A thing that was not good, the CHIPS and Science Act. Basically, he paid off the fucking, microchip industry. Congratulations, he bought him home, but they're holding him hostage. Oh, that's a great deal for the American people. I'm sure that'll be reflected long term. And then you're like, well, I want to get cannabis off of the fucking Schedule 1. That'll impact my life. I like that about it. Oh, but maybe he won't actually do it. But who fucking knows? I don't know. It's kind of like student loans or the $15 minimum wage or adequately addressing climate change or an infrastructure bill that wasn't really an infrastructure bill at all. Or how about, any of the other fucking issues that he ran on? You know what I'm saying? It's so easy to just dismantle all the bullshit that he doesn't want to talk about the Willow Project. You know what I mean?
Earlier today, $6 billion towards updating water infrastructure. As progressive, we've been saying, look at water, look at Europe and look at the US. We got to deal with water. He's doing $6 billion on water to finally get these lead pipes. I could give you the full list, right? When I look at I think to myself, man,
David, hold your horses, David. Whoa there. He wants to call the lead pipe situation a W for Joe Biden after he let that shit sit for fucking years, after he made no political commotion to prosecute the people responsible, after he basically just let these people suffer in silence. And also, by the way, as he continues to allow those very same people in Michigan to suffer for the fucking toxic chemicals that we just learned from Status Quo cost a woman 2 of her children at a tragically young age of 17. The daughter that had asthma, as you would imagine, that made her more vulnerable to all of the toxic fumes that were being pumped into her neighborhood as a child. And then this poor woman has a 33-year-old son that was on life support and apparently is now no longer with us. Absolutely depraved to try and use like the bandage pretend solution to that as some sort of trophy for Joe Biden. Deranged.
That's pretty good. And usually you get reelected as an incumbent. I think it doesn't look as bad as Cenk thinks it looks. That's where I'm falling based on what I see.
Yeah. So, David, both of those things are true. Your point of view is true and my point of view is true. So that leads people to a significant confusion.
Yes.
How could they both be true?
Right.
So let me explain.
Yeah.
So number one, on his accomplishments, yeah, if you look at it as the low bar that we have, which is that politicians get nothing done, Democrats get nothing done, and Biden actually got 15% of his agenda done. And then you look at that 15%, and those are the things that you described, they look pretty good. And I'm super psyched about the water infrastructure, et cetera. And you can see, look, as a candidate, I'm the same way as I am as a talk show host and as a regular person. I'm honest. So I'm not going to, it's not binary. It's not 0 or 1. The idea that Biden didn't get anything done is preposterous. No, he got those things done and they're pretty good, right? Now, from a progressive point of view, an average person's point of view, yes, but we needed a lot of change. And you just trashed the rest of your agenda, which was terrific and really popular. But put that aside, okay? And in terms of the economy, I give them even better grades. I think the economy is amazing. Is it amazing for the average person? No. But that's not on Biden. Biden, Obama, Trump, Bush, they all have the same thing where the rich get even richer and the middle class continues to struggle.
Are you saying right now? This is why you can't trust a guy like Cenk Uygur. What in the ever-loving shit is he coming out of his mouth right now? What in the fuck? Is the economy pretty good? Yeah. Is it good for the average person? No. What the fuck then? What the hell is the matter with you? I'm trying not to scream because I don't want to interrupt my neighbor who's a really nice guy. I don't want to piss him off. But anyway, that's absurd. This is where you lose me, Cenk. Fuck you. This is stupid. This is bad fucking philosophy. Like, what are you doing? Like, what is the point of your campaign now? Even I don't understand your political point of view. I don't understand how you could both claim to be running to represent the progressive movement and then say the average economy or the economy. Is it good for rich people like me? Yep. Is it bad for the average person? Yep. Well, it's pretty good. That's a fair shake. That's just like it always is. Like, what are you talking about? That's the whole fucking problem. That's why you're supposed to be running as a antidote to that. This is like some Cornell West rationalization over here. I'm like, why does the left put up the worst fucking political fucking acumen when the rubber meets the road? Why is it like, oh man, why like Jesus Christ, it's so frustrating to watch people just have absolute just handicap themselves with stupidity right off the bat.
Yeah. To be fair to Cenk, he might just be trying to reach Pakman's like hyper lib MSNBC light audience who wants to hear propaganda about Biden. So he might be trying to, give him some cake to help the pill go down or whatever. But yeah, I mean, that's a ridiculous statement. And the other, thing that I think is genuinely going to hurt Biden and put his reelection in jeopardy, along with the Israel war on Gaza and his age, is inflation. Like, I do think it's getting to the point where if Trump wants to talk a lot about inflation and really hone in on that issue and say that I'm going to fix inflation, I think that's going to be incredibly resonant and salient with the electorate.
You have to be a crazy person. Like, okay, we trolled Tucker because he was trying to make Moscow's grocery stores look based and like way more affordable than American ones. And that's not true. But guys, I am the kind of dude that I regularly go to the grocery store. I cook all the time. I am like really into finding like the best deals on like all natural stuff. I really care about all that shit, right? It has gotten almost impossible for even me as like a relatively privileged guy in terms of most things. Like, I'm not like massively handicapped by my paychecks or anything like that. I really like to prioritize eating well. And I don't think that the left should view that as like a bourgeois thing. I think that we should actually talk about changing the society that forces us to live off processed food, that forces the subsidies that are given out to not be for all natural organic food, but for disgusting food. And, we don't have to fall into the lie that that's the only way to feed people. However, even I can't afford to buy organic meat anymore, like ethically sourced, like shit that I would actually like to eat because I don't feel bad about it as much. Like, you know what I mean? Like, for example, one of the things that I like to eat because I know I won't be able to for much longer is like wild caught salmon, right? And if you get the ethically sourced wild caught salmon from Broadway Butcher, Gavin, do you know how much that shit costs right now?
God. Yeah, I was muted. Sorry, but how much?
It's like $60 a pound.
Fuck.
Which is like fucking astronomical increase. And obviously that's like the high end. That's like a crazy example of something that's gotten high levels of inflation. That's because there's no more fish left in our fucking ocean, by the way. And we fucking, so if you want like the cold answer, we're running out of fish everywhere, basically. But like, you know what I mean? It's crazy. And if you go to a regular grocery store and you're looking at stuff that even is like food that's ultra processed, like, it's still way more expensive. Like, even if you get like frozen food out of the fucking frozen freezer, it's like a frozen pizza could be like $8.99. It's like, well, fuck, man, that's about the same price as Domino's. You know what I mean? It's just like, what the hell? What are people supposed to do? And then people will go and just like order fucking pizza delivery, and that's not good for you, even though it's like the cheapest way to eat. So like we have to talk about how like all of these things are hurting regular people. And if you just go to the grocery store and you buy a cart of groceries for like a family of 5 or some shit, I mean, you're looking at like, even if you're like pinching your pennies and you're buying shit that's on sale like $150 a week or some shit, I guarantee you, depending on where you're at. And that's if you have access to like good grocery stores. A lot of people don't have access to good grocery stores. Imagine if you could only get to a grocery store like fucking Cosentino's, which just like bends you over a barrel and fucks you every time you try and go there. Every time it's convenient, I'll be like, oh, I'll just run to Cosentino's, and then I'll be like $50. I'm like, I got like 4 things. What the hell? How is this $50? Like, I remember my homie Peyton was like, how do you cook all the time, bro? I went to Cosentino's and tried to buy stuff for dinner. It was like $100. And I was like, bro, you don't ever go to Cosentino's ever again for the rest of your fucking life. Cosentino's is like a fancy ass grocery store that happens to be conveniently located right downtown in Kansas City. For people who don't know, everything good on the tech end, Gavin?
Oh yeah, everything's fine. But yeah, I totally agree with you, bro. And unlike Obama, like I said, even when his approval rating was getting pretty low in the run up to 2012, Biden's not even really able to defend his record or articulate a plan to make things better. There's not really an end in sight when we talk about issues like inflation, and Biden's not capable of inspiring people. He's not capable of kind of continuing the ruse like Obama was in the run up to his reelection, which I think is just, like I said, in making him increasingly vulnerable to the right wing.